Sometimes life goes so fast you just need to step back and take a time out. If you're really lucky, you can spend that time picking the brain of Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella. We could only find one guy brave enough to do it. Here's Bob McElligott and Time Out with Torts.
Torts, your team has come out of the break pretty much the same way they went into the break, quite frankly. You've picked up, 5 out of a possible 6 points in the 3 games coming out of the break now. So I would not dare ask you this question going into it, but I'll ask you now, 3 games out. Do you like the idea of that break? And just the All-Star break is one thing, but then to add the extra 5 days and have like a week and a half?
You know, when it first happened, started coming in, I wasn't sure, but I think it's good. I think it's good for the athletes. I think it takes a little bit of the staleness and maybe the tiredness out of the players, out of their game, and it gives you a better game as you get going. I think they're more refreshed, and I think that's what you're looking for, is to have the best hockey games played.
I think when they started this 5-day break, it was kind of a rolling, rotating schedule, and then after 1 year, teams said, hey, it's not fair. Ours came in November. Theirs came in February. They were more rested going into the playoffs. So they kind of changed it, and half the league on either side of the All-Star break has their break. But they still, in watching what's gone on this year, not just with your team, but there have been other teams that have complained about coming out of the break and facing teams that have already played games. So I guess that's maybe the next tweak that the league has to look at, is just pair me up with somebody that's coming off the break the same way we are.
Yeah, I'm sure they're trying to. I don't think it's going to be perfect. I don't think something like that is something like this is. We faced it where I think that was Buffalo's 3rd game coming off the break and was our first. But it is what it is. You know, we've gone about our business here. We've talked about it in the room. Let's not piss and moan about this. Let's just go out and play and just get about our business.
And you did go out and play in that game, and you were good in the first period. I guess, ironically, you would think it would take some time to get going. In that Buffalo game, you were good in the first period. It kind of fell off as the game went on there a little bit, and then you wind up tying it in the 3rd period. Had a goal waved off, too, by the way. Could have won it. But tie it in the 3rd period and then lose it in overtime. But, again, you kept your point streak intact.
Yeah. I thought our best forechecking period was the first. It seemed like we had the most energy then. And you know, when you come off a break, it does wear on you after 60 minutes. And but the thing I liked about it was we were kicking some rust off ourselves. We have a comeback point. Quite honestly, we come back in the 3rd period and tie it and get a point. So we leave the building happy. Being off for however many days we were. I thought we played well, and to start this, what I consider our start of our season.
As a coach, especially the kind of coach that you are, from the mental aspect of the game, when you don't get the 2 points against a team that's really struggling, but you do come back and get the 1 point, as you said, how much are you looking forward to seeing what they were going to do the next day in Montreal, how they were going to come out and try to make sure it was a successful weekend?
Yeah. Montreal's a great building to play in. And I'm glad we played back-to-back, because I just think it just gets you rolling into the groove of getting puck touches and just being involved in game situation. Really happy how we responded. Again, I don't care what team is struggling, what their record is, this and that. Each and every night, it's a competitive game. It's a hard game. I thought we responded really well in Montreal. Had some momentum swings in Montreal. Luke Turns went over, puts them right back in the game. We're up 2-0 in total control. Luke turns it over. I thought we handled ourselves very well there. So, so we're just trying to take it a day at a time.
The good thing for Pierre-Luc Dubois is that turnover that resulted in the Thomas Tatar goal is kind of forgotten, because he scored 2 goals of his own, and it was a big impact in that game. Now, I know you don't totally forget about those, and you go back and you show the video and all of that, but in these 3 games coming out of the break, how much has he been a factor in the things that he has done, and again, showing that when he wants to, he can take over a game?
Yeah, it is. I just think he's found a little bit of consistency in how hard you have to compete, and that's been a sticking point for me with him all year long, in the up and down inconsistency of competing all the time. He has a tremendous amount of gifts, tremendous size, the skill that he has, It's putting all together every night and learning how to prepare to do it every night. I think he's put a string together. Start with that Winnipeg game prior to the break and right on through here. I think he's upped his level. I think there's more there. And we're going to keep on asking for more to try to get him to understand what exactly is the standard of each and every night that he has to play.
How much has your relationship with him changed from his first year when he was the fourth-line winger that you were uncomfortable putting at center to then putting at center and watching him take over the number one spot there? There you're kind of feeling him out, maybe kid gloves to an extent. Now, 2.5 years later, is this a much different relationship between you and him?
Yeah, he's growing. Yeah, and it's how much can I ask for him? You know, at first we were trying to get him to understand the league. Early on, wasn't get a bunch of minutes. He grows each and every year, and then there's more responsibility. That's the thing. Players have to understand as they keep on growing, and more is expected out of them, and that isn't on every other night. It's every night we need the stuff out of him, and so it's a constant conversation him and I have. There's disagreements as far as how we go about it with him and I, but it's always an honest conversation with him, and it's going to remain honest. It's going to be remained hard because I just think there's more there. It's my job to get that out of him.
Is it any easier in the fact that he is a coach's son? So I'm sure that what you're going through with him is probably not the first time he's heard those things.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd have to ask him. I'm not so sure their kids listen to their dad. Sometimes they kind of tune people out. I know I've gone through that with my kids, and when it comes to sports, listen. I'll put it this way: he has a chance to be a great player in this league. He's still in the middle of the process of understanding what it is to be a pro, what it is to be an altogether a National Hockey League player here. And that's my job to make sure he stays on that right road.
And your job is also to win games, for your team to win games. But how much do you take it as a personal responsibility when you see a player like that has that kind of talent, that kind of potential? How much do you take it upon yourself to make them do everything you can, at least, to try to make them realize that potential and grow into it?
Yeah, sometimes when they don't realize why we do some of the things we do, and I think we have it on the wall. Good is the enemy of great. He can be a really good player through his whole career, but is good enough? Good does get in the enemy. It does get in the way of being a great player. It's my job to get him into levels of play and levels of coaching and levels of push to be a great player. So there's no fine print in a contract that you're not going to be coached. You're going to be coached. Everybody gets coached here by all the coaches. Sometimes they don't like it, but we're just going to keep going about our business.
And there is a track record, by the way, and you and I have talked about this before, how guys that you coached when you were younger and when they were younger, and Vinny LeCavier jumps right to the front of the conversation for me. Maybe they didn't like it at the time, the way you went about it, but you knew what you had in that player, and you got the most out of that player.
Yeah. It's sometimes with coaching and when you're developing players, they don't get exactly what was going on maybe 15 years later, as far as why some of the things were done. And this is all to make the player the best he can be, so he can be that great of asset for the team, so the team can be as good as they can be.
Another guy that has grown here in front of our eyes the last couple of years is Oliver Bjorkstrand. He was hurt. He comes out of his injury. He has 2 goals in back-to-back games, 2 goals in each of those games. He scores the one in Buffalo. It finds his stick. He finds the back of the net the other day. He's around it right now. And even more importantly, and I'm sure you appreciate this even more, the work that he's doing on the walls, the battles that he is winning are battles that maybe 2 years ago he didn't win.
Yeah, and it's something that was getting him 9, 10, 11 minutes, being dumped back down to the fourth line, not being put in tough situations or crucial situations early on, because he had to learn that. And this is all part of it for National Hockey League players to go through that process. Benstrom's going through it right now. And we see that he could be a really good player, but he's got to understand some of the other things that come with this game. And Oliver, very coachable, went through a grind as far as lack of ice time and odd man out, all the things, and he has found his way as far as what it is to be a pro and as far as his preparation, and I think everything else in this game is following right off of that.
What does it say about guys of his size? And not that he's a shorter guy, but there's not a lot to him. When he has the equipment off, he's a real thin kind of a guy, but yet he's going out there and he's winning battles against bigger guys each and every night. What causes that? How does he do it?
That's a will. That's a mental skill. He's really good at making himself. He can slide down a wall. A lot of players, offensive players, can have that skill to make themselves small going down the wall to get through some checks. Did it against Winnipeg, going down the wall and makes a great play down the wall, beats the defenseman and wins the game for us there. He is just. He's just. I think he's gone through it the right way, and has stayed patient as far as things coming together. Now you can just see he's playing with a ton of confidence.
The other guy that's been playing with him and Pierre-Luc Dubois is Nick Foligno, and Nick's game hasn't been as flashy. We're not talking about Nick with points and these great goals and all these things, but you go back to the Montreal game where he takes the puck into the zone, he holds on to the puck forever and draws a couple of guys to him, gets it moving in the zone, and eventually you guys score a goal. What can you say about those plays and just that physical grind edge that Nick Foligno brings to your team right now?
And Nick is a guy that has tremendous respect in this league for how hard he plays. I think it's been a very inconsistent year for him. I think he's played better when I put him with Luke and Borky. I think he's taken a little bit more responsibility as far as the grind on that line. He's been through a lot of situations in this league and has had a lot of success. Not getting a lot of points within his game right now, but he's doing a lot of different things for this team with the grind of it, and it's turned into a really good penalty killer for us as we've improved here as the season's gone on. So, big part of our team. And
it's all about making adjustments, right? I mean, Nick is in today's game. Nick is turning into an older player. Guys used to play till they're 40 plus, and now that's not the case. So as your goal production drops off, you got to do something else, and that's what he's doing right now.
Yeah, and he's still learning about leadership, when to step into the locker room and do some things with his teammates. Yeah, he has to find different ways to help the team if it isn't with goals and assists, and I think he understands that.
You mentioned penalty kill. That's something that you really have excelled at. Let's just go back to the game just here against the Florida Panthers. You get a double minor penalty called with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left in the second period. Pretty good timing if you're going to get 4 minutes penalty time because you can break it up with the end of the period. But your team comes out and they just work the first 2:10 and come out in the third period and just methodically work the other minute and 50 seconds. And they don't look like they're worried. They don't look like they're flinching. They just look extremely confident.
Huge part of the game, huge part of the win. I think the past couple of years, our penalty killing, as the year goes on, gets better and better. I just think they're reading off one another very well. It's been into more of a pressure situation. We have found more opportunities to pressure the power play, and they're doing it together. And I give Brad Shaw a lot of credit as far as how he teaches, how he methodically goes about it, and is getting better as the year goes on here. So that's been a big part of our success here of late.
And the fact of the matter is, you don't have to use it a lot, quite frankly, because you've been a pretty responsible team when it comes to taking penalties.
Yeah, there was a stretch in the season, I forget when it was, we were taking too many penalties, and I think we grabbed a hold of ourselves, and we've done a pretty good job of being disciplined. But the penalty kills have come through in a big way here with still the inconsistency of our power play.
Yeah, I think it was late November, early December, back when you were even taking the penalties in overtime, and it cost you a couple of games there.
Yeah, it happens. It's a long year. You just get into these funks, and sometimes some of them aren't even calls, but they are called, and you get into a situation like that. But I think we grabbed a hold of ourselves.
There's a guy that's a really good penalty killer who's not available for you right now, and that's Alexander Wenberg. And over the years, he has been criticized for his lack of offensive production or whatever it is. But right before he got hurt, what was his game like for you?
Well, it's really come on. He has held on to the puck. He has gained the middle of the ice with the puck into contact areas there. He has just improved his overall game. He's always been a good penalty killer. It's frustrating for him because I think the goals were going to start coming. He was getting chances. He was involved in a lot of our offense. It's a pretty important guy up the middle of the ice because I think he's improved that much that we lose him now. So I have a lot of respect for him. I've pushed him along the way. It's been a couple tough years for him. I think he makes his own bed with some of the stuff here, but I think he's handled himself so well this year and trying to get better as a player, and you can see it coming here as we get into the second half. Frustrating that he gets banged up.
Yeah, and you also finally figured out that center ice position, and now he's not a part of it. But Riley Nash had been playing so well for you on the fourth line that he gets more responsibility now. This is a guy that earlier in the year you healthy scratched because he wasn't playing well enough, and now you're at a point where you're leaning on him to do some big things.
More confidence with the puck. He's always been a very smart guy away from the puck. He seems to have picked up another step here. I think it's helped him. I just think he's making more plays with the puck. Has been with some young kids most of the year on his line. I just think he has gotten better in all areas of his game, and I do think it has come to his anticipation skills. I think he thinks quicker on the ice right now. I think he's playing quicker, and that's been the biggest drawback for me since he's come here. But I think he's finding his way there.
And now that fourth line, at least in the last game, you had Ryan McInnes who came up, and you have Nathan Gerby there, so that's a good veteran. Eric Robinson, who's really started to come into his own. When they're going to call a player up, and I know that's a GM's thing, but you and Jarmo talk about that. What's the process like? With Kevin Stenlund's also a centerman, so I don't know what kind of conversations you guys would have had, but what is the process like when you've got to call somebody up? Are you being told this is the guy that's coming, or is it discussed?
It's Ever down there talks to Chris Clark. Chris Clark talks to Jarmo. Jarmo and myself talk. It's a number of people talking about what we think our needs are and also what the merit brings down there. It's something we're trying to run right through our organization, that you're not called up on contract stature or it's about how you're playing. So there's a number of conversations that go along as we looking to bring players up.
For Ryan McInnes, who has only a couple of games here, is this a good opportunity for you that you're playing at home? Because you control who's going to be on the ice. You have the last line change. So if that fourth line is going, you had them out there last night in the third period. I think we're a little over 3 minutes left. They were getting the responsibility to go out there in a 0-0 game. But does it make it easier for you because you can dictate their ice time a little bit better at home?
It's easier at home. Losing a center iceman, because I've always had Nasher there to stabilize when we've had a couple of young kids here. It's easier. In my mind last night, I was still doing a lot more thinking, a lot more, not so much matching, but understanding what Joel was throwing over the bench, what I anticipated, because I wanted to make sure I put Mac, that fourth line, in an opportunity to succeed. So it's a little bit different when you lose a center, everybody gets bumped up. Now you have a young center playing with a couple other younger guys, well, not so much Gerbs, but it's just a line that I got to watch more closely who I play against. It'll be more difficult when we go on the road.
And on the other side, the defensive side of the puck, your top four guys, you don't have to blink. Anybody can go out there at any specific time. What about the Nudavara-Harrington pairing? Have you been happy with what they've done?
Been okay. They've been okay. Some inconsistencies. Not bad, but it's something that we try to place very similar. We was talking about with Mac. Try to place them in situations where we feel they can succeed.
I know that as guys have trickled back into your lineup, that's been good. But the last thing I'll ask you about here, because this is where people are now that you're in the playoff picture. The conversation all around the league turns to trade deadlines coming up in a couple of weeks, and I don't want to ask you about making deals, but I want to ask you about, and you went through this last year with this team, the chemistry factor. infusing different people into a room, especially when you have a group that is playing the way it is right now, no matter who's playing. And quite frankly, you got Josh Anderson to come back at some point here, hopefully soon. Jonas Corposalo comes back. Dean Kukin comes back. Ryan Murray hopefully comes back. Alexander Wenberg. That's like 5 trades right there, just on one hand. And I know Jarmo's always looking to make the team better. But as far as when you have a group that is clicking like this, how important is team chemistry?
Yeah, to win in the National Hockey League, team chemistry is important all the time. But I think as an organization, and Jarmo's probably a better one to answer it, but you have to take that in consideration, but you always have to be thinking about getting better in the long term also. And so trades can be for short term when you try to get a player from a roster, but sometimes these trades are made for draft picks and stuff like that when you're thinking about the long term. So there's a lot of things that come into play. I'm certainly not going to speak on it. I'll let Jarmo do that. My job is to coach the guys that are with me here, but team chemistry and playing as a team has been a very important lesson for us here as we've gone through here the past month or so, in where when you don't have as much stature in your lineup or veteran guys that have done it before in the league, and you get some hunger and belief into it, it can carry you. And we're just trying to ride the wave.
Yeah, but even last year you got some veteran guys, and it still took until that last stretch near the end of the year when you won, 7 out of 8 just to earn a playoff spot. So even though you had that, the character, the chemistry was affected, and it took time to adjust.
Yeah. You know what? We're a team that's we have to take each day at a time. And if we don't stay on top of ourselves and prepare the way we need to prepare, things can change very quickly. So we're just trying to keep our head down and work at our game and get ready for our next one.
It's one thing that's always consistent with you is the message, day in and day out. Torts, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, Bobby, thank you.
That's Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella. I'm Bob McElligott, and this has been Time Out with Torts.